All right, so we've got a ton of listener mail about JFK, specifically some really interesting stuff from the summer 2012 issue of the Dealey Plaza Echo, and it's not the usual stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about pretty in-depth research here. This is a publication specifically for serious JFK assassination researchers.
Right, not your casual History Channel documentary fodder. We're talking Jack White, the death of Officer J.D. Tippit.
Oh, and don't forget some pretty wild alternative bullet trajectory theories. And this particular issue, right before the 50th anniversary, there's this buzz, this energy of new research and debate coming out.
Exactly. Think of it as JFK for the advanced student stuff you won't find just anywhere. We're not going to relitigate the whole JFK case here, but we are going to pull out the most intriguing points from these sources. Get ready for some witness accounts I bet you've never heard, photographic analysis that really challenges the official story, and a deep dive into the Tippit shooting. Well, let's just say you'll be left wondering.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how much new information and new interpretations continue to emerge.
Okay, so first up, Farewell to a Friend. It's a tribute to Jack White, who, sadly, passed away just before this issue came out. And what struck me is how it starts off talking about how he met his wife through their shared interest in JFK.
Humanizes him, right? We know him for this meticulous photographic and film analysis, challenging the Warren Commission, but you forget there's a personal passion behind all that.
Yeah, and he was really influential, especially in the pre-digital era. But then there were these other details that add to the intrigue. Like there's this incident where somebody tried to break into his house, and he ended up injured with an ice pick.
That's bizarre, almost adds to the mystique surrounding him.
Right. And he lived in Fort Worth his whole life, but never visited Oswald's grave. Makes you wonder, what was going on there?
It certainly adds a layer of mystery. And speaking of mysteries, we can't talk about Jack White without mentioning his work on the Badgeman figure.
Oh, right. For those who aren't familiar, that's the shadowy figure some photos captured on the grassy knoll. White's analysis suggested this figure could have been holding a weapon.
Exactly, and it really shook things up. You know, decades after the assassination, new evidence can emerge and completely change how we understand what happened that day.
And this actually connects to another piece White debunked, the so-called fake video, those backyard photos of Oswald with a rifle. It all ties into the questions this issue raises about the authenticity of some key evidence.
It's a recurring theme, challenging the official narrative, looking beyond what we think we know.
Absolutely. And that questioning spirit leads us to our next subject, Lillian Rogers. Now, she was Abraham Zapruder's secretary, the guy who famously filmed the assassination.
Right, the Zapruder film, arguably the most important piece of evidence we have.
But get this woman was practically invisible in all the investigations, which is crazy because she was central to that film even existing. She's the one who urged Zapruder to grab his camera that morning.
Wow, I didn't know that. And she safeguarded the film afterward, too. It's astonishing no one ever really interviewed her. Not the police, not the FBI, not the Warren Commission.
I know. So this article, an interesting and mysterious lady, it really dives into her story. The researchers did some incredible detective work, tracing her life, even uncovering a name change she made late in life.
A name change? That just adds fuel to the fire. What was she hiding? Or was she trying to protect herself?
Right. Was it trauma, not wanting to be in the spotlight? Or was it a deliberate choice? What did she know? It really highlights the human side of this historical event and how much we still don't know.
And how much is still hidden, right? Unseen figures like Lillian Rogers who might hold key pieces of the puzzle. It makes you think of Jack White and his whole approach, always skeptical, always looking deeper.
It's like there are layers upon layers to this story, and every time you peel one back, there's another one underneath.
Which I guess is what keeps us fascinated by the JFK assassination, right? The constant feeling that there's something more to uncover.
Speaking of things lurking beneath the surface, let's shift gears a bit and talk about J.D. Tippit. Now, the official story, as I'm sure everyone knows, is that Oswald shot him.
Right. That's the narrative most people are familiar with.
But this article, Harvey, Lee, and Tippit, a new look at the Tippit shooting, presents a wildly different scenario. It starts with this chilling detail. Tippit saying a really heartfelt goodbye to his son that morning. Apparently, it was really unusual for him, almost like a premonition.
Whoa, okay. That's setting the stage for something big.
Oh, it gets even wilder. Hold on tight, because this article suggests there might have been multiple people impersonating Oswald that day.
The second Oswald theory. I've heard about this. The idea that someone else was deliberately posing as Oswald to frame him.
Yeah, and they lay out this whole timeline. with Oswald sightings at impossible times and places. Like, there's this incident at the Dobbs House restaurant where Tippit and someone matching Oswald's description were seen together. But hold on, at that exact time, Oswald was supposed to be at work at the Texas School Book Depository.
So either it's a case of mistaken identity or there was more than one Oswald running around.
Right. And then there are all these other Oswald sightings, like at the Top 10 record store, a Jiffy store.
Yeah.
It's like, if these weren't misidentifications, who were these guys?
Intriguing. So we've got possible Oswald impersonators, and then there's Tippit's own movements that day. The article mentions this unexplained stop he made at the Good Luck Oil station. Just sitting there watching traffic cross the bridge from Dallas. What was he doing?
Was he meeting someone? Was he leading Oswald somewhere? It really makes you wonder if Tippit was caught up in something much bigger than himself.
It certainly connects to that whole idea of Oswald as a patsy. Maybe Tippit was unknowingly playing a role in a larger plot. That's a chilling thought.
And then there's the Texas Theater, where two all men fitting Oswald's description were seen, but they were wearing different colored shirts. Witnesses to the Tippit shooting said the gunman was wearing a white shirt, but Oswald was arrested at the Texas Theater in a brown shirt.
Oh, wow. That shirt color discrepancy is huge. If the man in the brown shirt wasn't the Tippit shooter, who was he? And what happened to the guy in the white shirt?
It's like every detail adds another layer of intrigue. This red Ford Falcon seen speeding away from the assassination, the one with the license plate traced back to Tippit's best friend.
Who worked for Collins Radio, a company with alleged CIA connections. Wait, are you suggesting Tippit was involved in something bigger, something connected to the CIA?
It's all there in the article. This issue just keeps getting more and more intriguing. We've got photographic mysteries, disappearing witnesses, a police officer with possible CIA connections. Where do we even go from here?
Well, let's head back to the book depository. This time, we're going to challenge another pillar of the official story. The single bullet theory. Buckle up.
Oh yeah, this is where things get really interesting. Hold on, listener, we're about to go deep.
This article, The Single Bullet Fired by the Mafia, it really throws a wrench in the works. It argues that the shot that killed President Kennedy didn't come from where the Warren Commission concluded.
Yeah, this one really got my wheels turning. For our listeners who might need a refresher, can you quickly remind us what the single bullet theory is and why it's so controversial?
Sure. The single bullet theory, or SBT, claims that one bullet fired from Oswald's rifle caused all the non-fatal wounds to both President Kennedy and Governor Connally. It's been debated fiercely because many find it hard to believe that a single bullet could have zigzagged in such a way to inflict those specific injuries.
It does seem like a pretty unbelievable trajectory.
Yeah.
So how does this author challenge the SBT?
Well, they use something called a flatland diagram, essentially a bird's eye view of the shooting scene. And they use it to show how the bullet's path doesn't line up with Oswald's location in the book depository.
So if the bullet wasn't fired from behind, like the official story claims, where is this author suggesting it came from?
Their analysis points to a shot coming from behind Mrs. Kennedy on the car's left side, meaning the bullet would travel through President Kennedy and then into Governor Connally.
Wow. Okay, so that's a completely different perspective on the shooting. It makes you wonder, have we been looking at the evidence from the wrong angle all these years? And what does this new trajectory mean for who actually fired the shot?
The author suggests specifically that the Mafia might be responsible. They argue that this level of coordination, the precision needed for a shot like that, points to a highly organized and experienced group, something that certainly fits the description of organized crime.
That's a chilling thought. And it brings to mind Jack Ruby, right, the nightclub owner with ties to organized crime who shot Oswald. It adds another layer to this whole complex web of events.
Exactly. And while we should acknowledge that this Mafia theory is speculative, it's still a compelling argument. It warrants further investigation.
It's a good reminder that even among seasoned JFK researchers, there are varying opinions, different interpretations of the evidence.
Absolutely. And that's what makes these deep dives so interesting. We're not just presenting facts, we're exploring possibilities, prompting critical thinking, and hopefully inspiring our listeners to do their own research.
Speaking of which, I think it's a good time to circle back to Jack White for a minute. His work, especially on that badge man figure, really set the stage for this kind of meticulous analysis, that questioning of the official narrative.
Yeah, he was a pioneer in photographic and film analysis, and his influence is undeniable. He really showed us all the importance of scrutinizing every detail, every frame, every piece of evidence.
And his work on that fake video, those backyard photos of Oswald, is a perfect example. He meticulously debunked those photos, proved they were fabricated, and this really resonated with a lot of researchers who were already questioning the official narrative.
It's a great example of how one person's dedication and expertise can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to question, to investigate, to challenge accepted truths.
It's also a testament to the power of photography and film in shaping our understanding of history. They're not just static images. They're windows into the past, and sometimes those windows reveal more than we initially see.
And sometimes what they reveal challenges those deeply held beliefs we have about what happened. That's the power of research and critical thinking. It allows us to re-examine the past, to question assumptions, to form our own conclusions.
And as we delve deeper into this issue of the Dealey Plaza Echo, we're reminded that the JFK assassination is a case with many open wounds, unanswered questions, competing narratives. It's a case that continues to fascinate, frustrate, and fuel our collective desire to understand the truth.
Yeah, it's a historical puzzle that we may never fully solve, but it's that journey of exploring the evidence and the theories, the human stories behind it all, that makes it so compelling.
And that journey is far from over. Every new piece of information, every fresh perspective, every challenge to the established narrative brings us a little closer to a more complete understanding of what happened that fateful day in Dallas.
It's a reminder that history is not static. It's not set in stone. It's a living, breathing conversation that evolves as we uncover new evidence, as we ask new questions.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll finally uncover the truth about the JFK assassination. But until then, the deep dives continue. It's kind of amazing, isn't it? After all these years, the JFK assassination still holds so much mystery.
I think it speaks to how complex it was, and just the enduring power of unanswered questions.
Yeah, and it makes you appreciate those researchers like Jack White, who really dedicated themselves to this. Years spent meticulously going over the evidence, always looking for a deeper understanding.
His work, especially on the Badge Man and the fake video, really showed how important skepticism is and rigorous analysis.
He wasn't afraid to challenge the official story, and that paved the way for others to do the same.
And through that continuous questioning, that exploration, that's how we gain a more complete picture of history.
It's not about just accepting what we're told, but really engaging with the past, thinking critically.
Exactly. And that's what we try to do with these deep dives. Encourage our listeners to think for themselves, examine the evidence, and come to their own conclusions.
We've covered a lot today. Jack White's research, the mysterious Lillian Rogers, all those perplexing details around J.D. Tippit's death.
And even those alternative bullet trajectory theories, really shaking up the single bullet theory.
It's been a lot to take in, but I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that the JFK assassination is not a closed case.
Yeah, there are still so many unanswered questions, pieces of the puzzle that just don't seem to fit.
Maybe they never will. But that doesn't mean we should stop searching for answers.
The quest for truth, it's a process. It's ongoing. And every new discovery, every new perspective adds another layer to our understanding of this event, this pivotal moment in history.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I really want to encourage everyone listening to keep exploring the JFK assassination. Dive into those sources, really examine the evidence, and ask those tough questions.
Don't be afraid to challenge what you think you know. Consider different viewpoints.
Because sometimes those unexpected paths are the ones that lead to the most profound insights.
And who knows, maybe one of our listeners out there will be the one to uncover that missing piece of the puzzle, the one that finally solves the mystery of the JFK assassination.
That would be something, wouldn't it? But even if that day never comes, the journey itself, that exploration and discovery, is its own reward.
Absolutely. Keeps those brain cells firing.
Well, that's it for this deep dive, but the conversation doesn't have to end here. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the sources we talked about today. And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep